What if Rimuru x MHA, the hero copycat? By Rimuru Edward 6. This is a crossover between that time I got reincarnated as a slime and My Hero Academia. This fanfic will have All for One as the main villain and will follow the perspective of Rimuru. Chapter 20. All Might POV. The evening was quiet for once, a rare moment of peace that allowed me to sit back and reflect. The news of the destruction at one of All for One's hideouts had been a topic of discussion among heroes, but there had been no further development since the video surfaced. That is, until I heard a voice. Copycat here, the voice echoed in my mind, steady but tinged with urgency. I straightened in my seat, the familiar tone of Rimuru catching me off guard. Copycat! I muttered to myself. I had never spoken to her directly before. She worked with Hawks, not me. I know I usually do this through Hawks, her voice continued, as if reading my thoughts. But he is not in range with the quirk suppressors active. I need assistance. I have been kidnapped by All for One. Request for aid is needed. The word sent a chill down my spine. Kidnapped by All for One? My fists clenched involuntarily, the memory of my past battles against him flashing in my mind. Where are you? I asked aloud, knowing she could hear me. I am being held in a facility not far from the industrial district, she replied. I cannot give exact coordinates, but I can send a rough mental map. I am in a suppression chamber, so my quirks are limited. The urgency in her voice was unmistakable, but she was still composed, even in this dire situation. I closed my eyes, focusing as the mental map she promised appeared in my mind, a vague but clear enough layout of where she was. Understood, I said firmly, already rising to my feet. Help is on the way. Be careful, she added, her tone softening slightly. This is not just a random hideout. It is a trap, and I do not know what he is planning. But, thank you. Her voice faded, and I was left in silence. I grabbed my phone, dialing quickly as I moved. This is All Might. I need backup at the industrial district, an immediate response. A hero has been taken by All for One. Even as I issued the call for reinforcements, my mind was racing. Rimuru, copycat, was in All for One's grasp. Whatever he was planning, it was bigger than just her capture. But she had reached out for help. And I was not going to let her down. Hold on, copycat, I thought, determination surging through me as I stepped out into the night. You have shown incredible strength to make it this far. Now, it is time for me to do my part. With that, I set off, ready to face whatever waited ahead. Hawks POV. I was mid-flight, cutting through the night sky on a routine patrol when my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. Usually, I would ignore it until I landed, whoever it was could wait, but this time, the caller ID made me pause mid-glide. All Might? I muttered, pulling out the phone and answering quickly. Talk to me, I said, already feeling the tension in his tone before he spoke. Hawks, All Might's voice came through, firm but urgent. I just received a message from Copycat. My wings faltered for half a second before I adjusted. Rimuru? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. What did she say? She has been kidnapped by All for One, All Might said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. She managed to contact me because you were out of range. She is being held at a facility near the industrial district, under heavy suppression. I am on my way now. My grip on the phone tightened. She is in a suppression chamber. I asked, anger bubbling beneath the surface. And you are just now calling me? She reached out moments ago, All Might replied, his voice calm but firm. I am calling you because I need your help. This is not a solo rescue. All for One is planning something, and Rimuru made it clear this could be a trap. A trap. Of course, it was a trap. This was All for One we were dealing with. I am in, I said immediately, angling my wings toward the industrial district. Send me the coordinates. I will be there before you. Hawks, All Might said, his tone softening slightly. We need to proceed carefully. If All for One wants us to come after her, we cannot play into his hands without a plan. I know, I snapped, though my frustration was not aimed at him. But I am not sitting around while Rimuru is stuck in one of his chambers. Plan or no plan, I am getting her out. There was a pause on the line, then a resigned sigh. Just do not do anything reckless, All Might said. We need her alive, and we need you in one piece. Understood, I replied, ending the call before he could say more. My mind raced as I sped toward the industrial district, my feathers bristling with barely contained fury. Rimuru, copycat, was the strongest, sharpest person I knew. If All for One had managed to capture her, he was not just playing games. He was escalating. Hold on, Rimuru, I muttered, the city lights blurring beneath me. I am coming for you. As I sped toward the industrial district, the air around me seemed to hum with tension. Every second felt like an eternity, and my mind was spinning with plans and contingencies for what I would face when I got there. Then, suddenly, I heard her voice. Copycat here. I need assistance. I have been kidnapped by All for One. Request for aid is needed. I froze mid-flight, my wings beating in place as the words echoed in my mind. It was her, Rimuru, clear as day. But this was not like our usual telepathic exchanges. This was desperate, focused, and entirely businesslike. She was not talking to just me. She was sending the same message to anyone who could help. The thought made my chest tighten. Rimuru was not the type to ask for help lightly, let alone broadcast her vulnerability like this. I angled my wings and dove, speeding up as I called out to her in my thoughts. Rimuru, I am here. I am on my way. Just hold on. There was no response, but I could feel the faint trace of her presence, distant, muffled, but still there. She is alive, I told myself, gripping onto that one thought like a lifeline. I replayed her words in my mind as I flew, noting every detail. No bravado, no teasing, just a clear and urgent call for help. She was keeping it simple, leaving out anything unnecessary, including the line she had apparently told All Might about normally reaching me. It made sense. If she thought I was too far away to hear her, she would not waste time explaining. But now I was close enough. Close enough to hear her. Close enough to act. All for One, you are not keeping her, I muttered under my breath, my feathers sharpening in anticipation. With her voice still echoing in my mind, I pushed myself to go faster. I did not care if this was a trap. I was not going to let him win. Just hold on, Rimuru. I am almost there. As I neared the industrial district, her voice came through again, but this time, it was not just a broadcast, it was directed at me. Finally, you are in range for normal conversation. Limits are stupid. I smirked despite the tension in my chest. That was the Rimuru I knew. Rimuru, I thought back quickly, are you okay? What is your status? Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of frustration to it. I just need to open this stupid door. All for One thinks I am completely neutralized, like some helpless regular person. But Copycat is not normal, Hawks. You know that. My heart raced as I processed her words. You still have access to your quirks. Kind of, she admitted. The suppression is limiting me, but I can still use some quirks, lesser forms, sure, but better than nothing, right? I exhaled sharply, relief flooding through me. That is more than I hoped for. Can you give me a layout of where you are? She paused for a moment, then replied, I am in a suppression chamber, underground. The door is reinforced, but it is not impenetrable. I have been chipping away at it with what I have got, but I will need backup to get through completely. I am almost there, I said, banking toward the coordinates she had mentally shared earlier. Just hang tight. We are getting you out. Her laugh echoed faintly in my mind, wry but determined. Hawks, I am not going anywhere until I make sure All for One knows I am not some helpless damsel. So, get ready, because the second you are here, we are taking this place apart. I smirked, her confidence fueling my own. Would not expect anything less. Just do not get yourself killed before I get there, all right? No promises, she shot back, a hint of mischief in her tone. Now hurry up. This door is driving me insane. With her voice guiding me, I pushed myself faster, my feathers bristling in anticipation. Rimuru was not down for the count, not even close. And together, we were about to make sure All for One regretted ever underestimating her. Hold on, Rimuru. I am almost there, I thought, determination surging through me. Let us show him what happens when you mess with Copycat. Chapter 21. All for One POV. The air in the suppression chamber was heavy, charged with a faint hum from the devices dampening Rimuru's quirks. She was seated, her silver hair disheveled but her golden eyes sharp, defiant as ever. The restraints held her in place, but they did not diminish the fire in her gaze. I stepped into the room, the door closing behind me with a faint hiss. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the otherwise silent chamber as I approached her. Rimuru, I said, my voice calm and measured. How are you finding your accommodations? She smirked, leaning back as much as the restraints allowed. Could use a better view. The whole dimly lit prison cell aesthetic is getting old. I chuckled softly, clasping my hands behind my back. Your wit is as sharp as ever. A remarkable trait, though I wonder how far it will get you this time. Her eyes narrowed. Far enough to make sure you lose. I tilted my head, studying her. Even now, restrained and suppressed, she radiated defiance. It was admirable, in a way, a testament to the resilience I had instilled in her. And yet, I said, my tone soft but cutting, you sit here, bound and powerless. A stark contrast to the fireworks and theatrics you so boldly displayed not long ago. Powerless, she repeated, raising an eyebrow. You sure about that? Last I checked, Copycat is not exactly normal. I paused, watching her carefully. There was an edge to her voice, a confidence that should not exist given her current situation. You always did have a knack for surprises, I said, stepping closer. But let me remind you, Rimuru, whatever power you believe you hold, it pales in comparison to mine. She rolled her eyes, the smirk never leaving her face. Oh, please. You are so predictable, All for One. Big speeches, bigger ego. Let me guess, you are here to remind me that I am your creation, right? That no matter what I do, I will always be connected to you. I stopped just short of her, my smile fading. You mock me, but you cannot deny the truth, Rimuru. Every move you make, every strategy you employ, it all traces back to me. Your strength is my design. Her golden eyes locked onto mine, unflinching. If you are so sure of that, she said, her voice calm and deliberate, then why are you so desperate to keep me here? The question hung in the air, a challenge I had not expected. Because, I said slowly, my tone darkening, you are a threat, not just to me, but to the very balance I have worked to create. Your defiance undermines everything, and I cannot allow it to continue unchecked. She laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that echoed in the chamber. Wow, you really do not get it, do you? This is not about you, All for One. It never was. I am fighting for something bigger than your little power games. I leaned in closer, my presence looming over her. And yet, here you are. Caught. Contained. A symbol of your own failure. Her smirk widened, a glint of mischief in her eyes. If you really think I am contained, you are not as smart as you think you are. Something in her tone gave me pause, but I masked it quickly, straightening and turning toward the door. You may have your quips, Rimuru, but they will not save you. Enjoy your time here while it lasts. As I left the chamber, her laughter followed me, grating and unsettling. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of uncertainty. What are you planning, Rimuru? Hawk's POV. The industrial district came into view, the cold metallic structures casting long shadows under the dim moonlight. I was scanning the area for any signs of Rimuru when her voice suddenly slipped into my mind, clear and confident. "Hey, Hawks. I am in range for the full support package. We can do this like we always do again." I felt a rush of relief and focus all at once, her tone as casual as if we were back on a routine mission. "Glad to hear it, copycat. What is the status? You still pinned down?" "Yeah," she replied, a faint note of irritation in her voice. "Suppression chamber is still active, so my quirks are nerfed. But I can give you the full layout of this place. Same deal as always, intel from me, action from you." I grinned, adjusting my trajectory to keep low and fast. "You have got a deal. Send me what you have got." A moment later, the mental map appeared in my mind, detailed and precise, as if she had been walking the corridors herself. She highlighted the suppression chamber she was in, the guard routes, and even the best entry points. "You have been busy," I thought, impressed. "Always," she said lightly. "You know me, Hawks. I do not sit around twiddling my thumbs." "Good," I replied, banking toward the entry point she had marked as the least guarded. "Let us do this. One more thing," she added, her tone softening slightly. "Be careful. This place is crawling with all-for-one's lackeys, and they are not amateurs." "You worried about me, Rimuru?" I teased, smirking as I approached the building. "Always," she said simply, and I could feel the faint warmth in her words. "Now stop wasting time and get me out of here." On it, I thought, focusing on the task ahead. With her intel guiding me, I knew exactly where to strike. The full support package was back, and this time, we were not just going to break her out, we were going to send a message of our own. "Hang tight, Rimuru," I thought as I moved into position. "We are about to turn this place upside down." All Might POV. The industrial district loomed ahead, a maze of towering buildings and dimly lit alleys. My senses were on high alert as I moved toward the facility Rimuru had described. My mind raced with possibilities, wondering what kind of horrors All for One had in store. Then, I heard her voice, calm, steady, and unmistakable. "Hey, All Might. Hawks will get through the back. Can you make sure the attention is at the front?" I stopped in my tracks, startled by the sudden telepathic connection. "Rimuru," I said aloud, my voice low. "You are speaking directly to me." She chuckled faintly in my mind. "Yeah, surprising, huh? You might ask yourself how I can talk to you if my quirk should be completely compromised." The thought had crossed my mind. The suppression devices All for One used were some of the most powerful tools I had encountered, capable of neutralizing even the strongest quirks. "Well," she continued, "it is because my quirk cannot be totally suppressed. I am the only person who has this kind of thing." "Limited? Sure. But not completely compromised." Her tone carried a hint of pride, and despite the situation, I could not help but smile. "That is incredible, Rimuru. But are you sure you are safe enough to coordinate this?" "Safe enough," she replied. "And do not worry, I have already done the hard part. Hawks is moving in through the back. If you can draw their attention to the front, it will give him the opening he needs." I nodded to myself, already forming a plan. "Understood. I will make sure the front is loud enough to get everyone's attention." "Good," she said, her voice softening. "I am counting on you, All Might. Just, do not overdo it, okay? I do not need both of us ending up in trouble." I chuckled, my old instincts kicking in. "I have got this, Rimuru. You focus on staying strong." "Always," she replied, and the connection faded, leaving me with a renewed sense of purpose. I moved toward the front of the facility, every step deliberate. Hawks would need the cover to infiltrate unnoticed, and I would make sure he got it. "All for One," I murmured to myself, clenching my fists. "You have underestimated her, Anas." With Rimuru's guidance and Hawks in position, we were about to turn this trap into a rescue mission they would not forget. All for one POV. The industrial facility hummed with activity, my operatives stationed strategically throughout the building. The suppression devices holding Rimuru in check thrummed steadily, a sound that filled me with satisfaction. She was here, contained, and her confidence would soon shatter. Also, I thought. A commotion at the front entrance pulled my attention. Explosions, the sound of metal crashing against metal, and shouts from my guards echoed through the corridors. My monitors flared to life, displaying All Might himself tearing through the defenses like a wrecking ball. I leaned back in my chair, steepling my fingers as I watched the chaos unfold. So, the symbol of peace has come to play, I murmured, a faint smile curling on my lips. All Might is engaging at the front, Overseer reported, his voice clipped. He is drawing most of our forces. How convenient, I replied, my tone measured. And what of the rest of the facility? Any unusual activity? None detected so far, he said. The suppression chamber remains secure. I nodded slowly, my gaze flicking to the screens. All Might's arrival was no coincidence. He was here for Rimuru. But something about this felt too deliberate. Rimuru was not the type to leave things to chance. She was a strategist, always 10 steps ahead. This frontal assault was not her style, at least, not entirely. She is using him, I murmured to myself, realization dawning. So? Overseer asked, glancing at me. All Might is a distraction, I said, my smile widening. Someone else is coming in from the back. Overseer stiffened, his hand moving to his communicator. I will send additional forces. No, I interrupted, raising a hand. Let them come. I want to see how far they will go to reclaim her. I stood, turning to one of the monitors displaying the suppression chamber. Rimuru sat there, calm and composed, her golden eyes scanning her surroundings with a focus that unsettled even me. You always did excel at turning the tables, Rimuru, I said softly, watching her expression. But let us see if you can do so while under my thumb. The sound of All Might's continued assault reverberated through the facility, shaking the very walls. My operatives scrambled to contain the chaos, their efforts valiant but ultimately futile against someone like him. But I was not worried. The trap was not just for Rimuru. It was for all of them. I turned to Overseer, my voice calm but commanding. Double the guard at the suppression chamber. Let Hawks find his way in, but ensure he does not leave. Yes, my lord, Overseer said, bowing before rushing to carry out my orders. As I watched the monitors, my smile widened. Come, Hawks, I murmured. Let us see if your wings can carry you through the storm I have prepared. And with that, I settled back into my chair, ready to see how far they were willing to go, and how far they would fall. Chapter 22. All for one POV. The commotion at the front continued to escalate. All Might's relentless assault drew the attention of my operatives, scattering them like leaves in a storm. Meanwhile, I monitored the suppression chamber, confident in the security measures I had put in place to keep Rimuru contained. But then, something unexpected happened. The camera feed flickered, and the door to Rimuru's cell slid open, not from an external attack, but from within. My eyes narrowed as two of my own operatives stepped into view, weapons drawn. But instead of securing her, they turned on the guards stationed outside the chamber. The sudden betrayal threw the room into chaos, my loyal followers clashing with those who had defected. Through it all, Rimuru sat calmly, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Interesting, I murmured, leaning forward in my chair. She stood slowly, her movements deliberate, as if savoring the moment. The suppression field crackled faintly around her, but she did not seem bothered. Her golden eyes swept over the chaos, and with that same infuriating smile, she stepped out of the chamber. The defectors formed a protective ring around her, cutting down anyone who tried to approach. One of my loyal operatives managed to get close, shouting, "Traitors! You will pay for this," before being silenced by a precise strike. Rimuru stopped just outside the chamber, her hands resting casually at her sides. "You know," she said, her voice calm and carrying over the sounds of fighting, "for someone who prides himself on control, you are not very good at keeping it, are you?" I clenched my fists, my gaze locked on the screen. "So, this was your plan all along," I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. She tilted her head slightly, as if hearing my thoughts, and glanced up at the camera. Her smile widened, and she raised a hand in a mock salute. "See you soon, all for one," she said, her tone dripping with confidence. Then she turned and walked down the corridor, her new allies following close behind. The screen cut out, static filling the monitor as I sat in silence. For the first time in years, a flicker of genuine frustration burned in my chest. "She has turned them against me," I said softly, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Clever, Rimuru. Very clever." But this was not over. Not by a long shot. "Enjoy your freedom," I murmured, my voice low and cold. "Because when I catch you again, there will be no escape." This was not just a game anymore. Rimuru had crossed a line, and I would make sure she paid for it. One way or another. The betrayal unfolding on the screen was infuriating. My followers turning on one another, aiding Rimuru in her escape, it was unthinkable. Yet, as I watched, something in their movements, in their eyes, gave me pause. I leaned closer to the monitor, studying their expressions. There was no hesitation, no conflict in their actions. Their loyalty, their years of dedication to me, seemed to vanish in an instant. And then I saw it. A faint glaze over their eyes, a telltale sign of something unnatural. My frustration twisted into cold understanding. "Mind control," I murmured, the pieces clicking into place. Rimuru had not turned them against me through persuasion or ideology. She had used a quirk, perhaps her own or one she had copied. This was not defection. It was manipulation. "How clever," I muttered, though my voice carried more irritation than admiration. "You knew you could not outmaneuver me with brute force, so you found another way." I turned to the communicator on my desk, pressing a button to connect to Overseer. His voice came through almost immediately, strained from the chaos. "Yes, my lord." "Mind control," I said curtly. "The defectors are not acting of their own will. Rimuru is using a quirk to manipulate them. Focus on neutralizing her influence." There was a brief pause, then Overseer's voice returned, steadier this time. "Understood, my lord. We will recalibrate suppression devices to counteract mental interference." "Do it quickly," I commanded, cutting the connection. I leaned back in my chair, my frustration simmering just beneath the surface. Rimuru's strategy was bold, but it came with risks. Mind control quirks, while effective, often had limitations. Distance, duration, and the mental resilience of the target could all play a role. And once I found the source of her control, I would exploit its weakness. "You are resourceful, Rimuru," I murmured, watching the static-filled screen. "But resourcefulness will only get you so far. Mind control may win you allies for now, but it will not save you in the end." The game was shifting again, and while she had won this round, I would ensure the next one ended in my favor. "You can run, you can manipulate, but you cannot escape me," I said softly, my voice a promise as I began crafting my next move. The trap would be set. And this time, there would be no escape. As I sat in the quiet of my chamber, the remnants of chaos still echoing through the facility, my mind churned. Rimuru's escape was not simply a matter of clever planning, it defied the very laws of control I had placed upon her. The suppression devices should have rendered her powerless. That was their design, their purpose. Yet somehow, she had exerted influence over my operatives, bending them to her will. "How?" I murmured to myself, my voice low and cold. I replayed the scene in my mind, focusing on the faint glaze in my followers' eyes, the subtle signs of manipulation. It was unmistakable, mind control. But how had she done it under suppression? Her quirk, analytical copycat, was extraordinary. It allowed her to analyze and replicate quirks, even wielding them with precision. However, suppression devices specifically targeted neural pathways connected to quirk activation, severing the connection between the user and their abilities. By all logic, she should have been helpless. Yet she was not. I steepled my fingers, leaning forward as the pieces began to align. Rimuru was unique, her quirk itself was an anomaly. Analytical copycat was not a mere replication quirk, it was a mastery of understanding, a deconstruction of quirks at their fundamental level. Perhaps. A slow smile spread across my face as the realization dawned. Her quirk is not bound by conventional limitations, I murmured. She does not just copy quirks, she rewrites them. If her quirk allowed her to understand and reframe abilities on a conceptual level, then suppression would only affect the surface manifestation of her powers. The essence of her quirk, the knowledge she gained, would remain intact, buried beneath the suppression. And if that knowledge extended to quirks she had already analyzed, she could potentially activate simpler or less powerful versions, slipping beneath the suppression's threshold. Clever, Rimuru, I said softly, the corners of my mouth curling into a sinister smile. You have found a way to operate in the shadows of control. Limited, yes. But not helpless. I stood, turning toward the remaining monitors as a new sense of intrigue filled me. Her defiance was not just rebellion, it was ingenuity, a demonstration of her ability to adapt and evolve even under the tightest constraints. But every strength has a weakness, I murmured, my voice low and deliberate. And I will find yours. Her escape was a setback, but it was not the end. If anything, it was a challenge, one that I intended to meet with full force. The game was far from over, and Rimuru's ingenuity would soon face the weight of my resolve. Chapter 23. All for one POV. As I studied the monitors, piecing together the details of Rimuru's unexpected escape, her voice suddenly broke through the static, clear and mocking. Copycat here. Your monitors and communication devices have been compromised. Success, all for one. I froze, my eyes narrowing as her words echoed through the chamber. The monitors flickered, the images of my operatives and the facility dissolving into static. A faint hum crackled through the speakers before the screens went dark. Rimuru, I murmured, my tone low and sharp. She had done it again, turned my own systems against me, using her quirk to infiltrate the very tools I relied upon to maintain control. The precision of her attack was unmistakable. But this was not just sabotage. This was a statement. Compromised, I muttered, the word bitter on my tongue. Impressive, Rimuru. But you forget one thing. I turned to the backup systems I had in place, redundant systems that no amount of quirk manipulation could touch. With a flick of a switch, the monitors lit up again, displaying only static. She had not been able to reach these, at least not yet. Her message was clear, she wanted me to know she could infiltrate my stronghold. She wanted me to feel the weight of her defiance. But I would not give her the satisfaction. Success is a fleeting thing, my dear, I said softly, my voice cutting through the silence of the chamber. You have won a battle, yes. But the war is far from over. I turned away from the monitors, my mind already working through the implications. If she could compromise my systems once, she could do it again. I would need to adapt, to counter her ingenuity with strategies of my own. Let us see how long you can keep this up, Rimuru, I murmured, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. Because no matter how clever you think you are, you cannot outmatch me. Her message had been received. But it was my move now. And when I struck back, I would make sure she understood the cost of defiance. The static on the monitors was infuriating, but as I reviewed the events leading to Rimuru's escape, one detail stood out, a subtle but critical observation. She had been using more than one quirk at once. I replayed the scene in my mind, focusing on the moments when my defected operatives moved in unison, their actions perfectly synchronized under her control. At the same time, the door to the suppression chamber had been overridden with a level of precision that suggested another quirk entirely. And then there was the speed. She was switching between abilities faster than the supposed limits of her analytical copycat. Those intervals she had hinted at in previous encounters, 5 seconds between each switch, they were a lie. My hands tightened into fists as the realization sank in. She has been holding back, I murmured, my voice cold with annoyance. All this time, she has been playing a game of misdirection. Rimuru had crafted an image of herself that was both formidable and flawed, a calculated deception designed to make others underestimate her. And it had worked. Even I had accepted the idea that her quirk came with constraints. But now, as I pieced it together, the truth became clear. Her ability to analyze and copy quirks was not just surface-level replication. It was mastery. Understanding. Rewriting. She was not bound by the same rules as other quirk users because her power operated on a deeper level. And those supposed limits? They were nothing more than a smokescreen. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. Clever girl, I murmured, my voice tinged with both irritation and admiration. Her escape was not just an act of defiance, it was a demonstration. A statement that she was no longer the creation I had once controlled. But every illusion has its cracks, I said softly, my eyes narrowing. And every strength has its weaknesses. If she was capable of wielding multiple quirks and switching between them seamlessly, then her stamina, her focus, or her mental capacity had to be taxed. No one, not even Rimuru, could operate at that level indefinitely. I will find your breaking point, Rimuru, I murmured, standing as the static on the monitors continued to flicker. And when I do, you will realize that no amount of misdirection can save you. Her cleverness was admirable, but it would not save her from what came next. The game was still mine to control, and she had only ensured that my next move would be devastating. The static on the monitors flickered again, and I focused on the live feed still available. Rimuru's voice had taunted me moments ago, but as I watched, something inexplicable occurred. One moment, she was in the corridor, flanked by the defected operatives she had manipulated. The next, she was gone. No warning. No visible quirk activation. I scanned the remaining cameras, switching between feeds in search of her. And then I saw her, on the other side of the building, standing alongside Hawks and All Might. I froze, my gaze narrowing as I processed the impossibility of what had just happened. How? I murmured, my voice barely audible. Teleportation? No. The suppression devices would have dampened any quirk powerful enough to move her that distance instantly. A decoy? Unlikely, given the precision and timing. And yet, there she stood, calm and collected, as if she had never been in the suppression chamber at all. Rimuru raised her hand in a mock wave, her golden eyes glinting with amusement as she looked directly into one of the functioning cameras. Hawk stood beside her, his feathers bristling in readiness, while All Might loomed like an unyielding wall of determination. Rimuru's voice echoed through the compromised speaker system, sharp and teasing. Miss me already, all for one. The words dripped with confidence, and I could feel the mockery in her tone. She knew exactly what she was doing, sowing doubt, pushing me to question the limits of her abilities. But there was something else in her expression, something more deliberate. She wanted me to see her like this. Interesting, I said softly, leaning back in my chair. You are making this personal, Rimuru. Very well. If she had truly bypassed the suppression devices, if she had somehow moved across the facility without triggering a single alarm, then her quirk was even more versatile and dangerous than I had anticipated. But this was not just about her abilities. It was about control. Enjoy your victory, I murmured, a slow smile spreading across my face. Because it will not last. Her clever tricks and calculated maneuvers had created chaos, but chaos alone would not win this war. She had shown her hand. And now, it was my turn to respond. Let the games continue, Rimuru, I said, my voice low and cold. But remember, every move you make brings you closer to me. As I watched Rimuru stand alongside Hawks and All Might, her calm defiance radiating even through the static-filled monitors, a thought struck me, a realization that simmered with equal parts pride and irritation. Her quirk was ready. No longer the fledgling ability I had once shaped and nurtured, it had grown into something formidable. A force that could rival my own. Analytical copycat, I murmured, the name of her quirk rolling off my tongue like a challenge. It was no ordinary ability, no mere replication. What she wielded was not just power, it was mastery. The ability to analyze, understand, and wield quirks with a level of precision that rivaled my own all-for-one. I leaned back in my chair, steepling my fingers as I considered the implications. In practice, her quirk was disturbingly similar to mine. Where I took quirks and made them my own, she dissected them, rewrote them, wielded them with unparalleled finesse. And now, she was using that power against me. I am proud, I admitted softly, my voice carrying through the empty chamber. And yet, I am irritated. How far you have come, Rimuru. I had created her, mold her potential, and in doing so, I had inadvertently set the stage for my greatest challenge. She was not just defying me, she was mirroring me. Her methods, her strategies, even the way she used her quirk, it was as though she had taken the very essence of my power and refined it into something uniquely her own. A slow smile spread across my face as I stood, the weight of the moment settling over me. You have become a force to be reckoned with, my dear, I murmured, my voice a mix of admiration and menace. But remember this, while your quirk may be the only one that can match mine, it is still incomplete. She had mastered much, but she had not faced the full weight of what I could do. And while her quirk was similar to mine in many ways, it lacked the raw dominance that came with absolute control. You are my creation, I said, my voice cold and sharp. And as proud as I am of your progress, I will not allow you to forget where it began. The pride I felt was undeniable, but it was tempered by the irritation of seeing her use what I had nurtured against me. The game was evolving, and so was she. But I was far from finished. Come, Rimuru, I murmured, my smile widening. Let us see which of us truly understands power. Chapter 24. All for one POV. As I observed the monitor, my gaze locked onto Rimuru and her defiant smirk, something unexpected occurred. The figures around her, Hawks, All Might, and even my defected operatives, stiffened. Their movements halted abruptly, as if an invisible hand had gripped them and rendered them immobile. They were frozen. Even the ever-dynamic Hawks, with his constant twitch of feathers, stood still, his expression frozen in mid-concentration. All Might, the embodiment of unyielding resolve, remained locked in place, his fist half raised. Rimuru, however, moved freely, stepping through the still figures with a casual ease. My eyes narrowed, my mind racing to comprehend what I was seeing. What is this? I murmured, leaning closer to the screen. The suppression devices could not have malfunctioned, those systems were redundant and layered. This was something else entirely. Rimuru's golden eyes glinted as she walked toward the nearest camera, her expression calm and deliberate. She tilted her head slightly, as if she knew I was watching. Do you see it now, all for one? Her voice echoed through the chamber, carried by my compromised speakers. The difference between us. I clenched my fists, irritation simmering beneath my otherwise composed exterior. You have done something new, I said aloud, speaking to the image of her on the screen. Another quirk. One I did not anticipate. She smiled faintly, her gaze steady. Close, she said, her voice calm and confident. It is not a new quirk, it is a deeper understanding of an old one. I felt a flicker of irritation mixed with intrigue. You have expanded your abilities, I murmured, more to myself than to her. She raised her hand, gesturing to the frozen figures around her. They are not hurt, she said. Just paused. It is a side effect of digging deeper, of refining what I can do. Call it precision control. I gritted my teeth, my mind racing to analyze her words. She had refined her mastery of quirks to such an extent that she could manipulate time, space, or perception on this scale. Impressive, I said softly, my voice laced with both irritation and admiration. You continue to evolve, Rimuru. But even this has its limits. Her smirk widened, and for a moment, I saw the fire in her golden eyes burn even brighter. Maybe, she said, turning away from the camera. But you will have to catch me to find out. With that, she walked out of frame, leaving the frozen figures and a silent challenge in her wake. I stood in the stillness of my chamber, the monitors flickering as her actions replayed in my mind. She has become more than a match, I admitted quietly, a slow smile spreading across my face. But even the strongest must fall eventually. Her abilities were impressive, yes, but they were not unstoppable. The game was not over. Not yet. Her voice echoed through the chamber once more, calm and deliberate, yet dripping with the confidence that had come to define her. I will take my hero co-workers and call it a day, she said, her tone light, as if the chaos she had caused was merely a minor inconvenience. But do not worry, all for one, I will always be watching. I clenched my fists, the edges of my smile tightening as her words lingered in the air. She spoke as though she had already won, as though her escape and her newfound abilities placed her beyond my reach. The monitor flickered, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of her walking away with Hawks and All Might, the latter finally regaining his movement, his towering frame as imposing as ever. Hawks flanked her, his feathers bristling with readiness, while Rimuru led the way, her steps unhurried, her expression calm. She had disrupted my plans, escaped my grasp, and left my stronghold in disarray. And yet, her parting words carried a weight that both irritated and intrigued me. Always watching. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my chest transforming into a cold determination. You have grown bold, Rimuru, I murmured, my voice low and sharp. But watching is not enough. Sooner or later, you will have to act. And when you do... I turned away from the monitors, the faint flicker of static behind me as I stepped into the shadows of my chamber. I will be ready. Her ability to orchestrate such a precise and audacious escape was remarkable, yes, but it also revealed much about her limits. For all her power and cleverness, she still had weaknesses I would uncover and exploit. I will always be watching too, my dear, I thought, my lips curling into a slow, deliberate smile. And when the time comes, I will remind you who truly holds the power. The game continued, and I was more than ready for the next move. Hawk's POV. The moment we were out of sight, clear of the industrial facility and its lingering chaos, I felt the tension ease ever so slightly. All Might walked ahead, his imposing frame leading the way, but my eyes were fixed on Rimuru. She was keeping pace, but barely. Her steps were slower, her shoulders trembling just enough for me to notice. And then, without warning, she collapsed. Rimuru! I shouted, catching her before she hit the ground. Her body was limp, her silver hair falling over her face as I carefully lowered her to the ground. Her golden eyes were half closed, flickering with exhaustion. She was mumbling, her words slurred but audible. Might have overdone it a bit. Overdone it? I muttered, my heart racing. You pushed yourself way too far, Rimuru. All Might turned back, his expression shifting from resolve to concern as he crouched beside us. Hawks, is she? She is out cold, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the worry clawing at me. Probably burned through too much energy using her quirks. Whatever she did in there, it was not easy. All Might nodded solemnly. She saved herself, and us. But it looks like it came at a cost. I brushed a stray strand of hair from her face, her breathing shallow but steady. You always push yourself too hard, I muttered, shaking my head. Her mumbling continued, barely audible now. Always watching, cannot stop. I clenched my jaw, the weight of her words settling over me. She was not just fighting all for one, she was fighting herself, her limits, her need to stay 10 steps ahead of everyone else. We need to get her somewhere safe, I said, standing with Rimuru cradled in my arms. She is not going to recover out here. All Might nodded. I know a place. Let us move quickly. As we took off, I could not help but glance down at her, her usually confident expression replaced by one of vulnerability. You did good, Rimuru, I whispered. But you are not doing this alone anymore. Not while I am around. For now, she was safe. But I knew her well enough to know this was far from the end of her fight. As we moved to a safe location, All Might leading the way, I noticed something sticking out of Rimuru's pocket. A small, folded piece of paper, barely visible against the fabric of her jacket. Carefully, I shifted her in my arms and pulled it out. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, neat, deliberate, and as calculated as everything she did. Unfolding it, I quickly scanned the note. Used a quirk to bypass the limit of suppression, but that quirk has a big drawback. Once it is no longer needed, all the energy used during the duration is taken again at once. My heart sank as the words hit me. Of course, I muttered under my breath. Rimuru, you genius idiot. All Might glanced back at me. What is that? I held up the note briefly before tucking it back into her pocket. A little explanation, I said grimly. She used a quirk to override the suppression field, but it came at a cost. The second she did not need it anymore, all the energy she burned through hit her at once. All Might frowned, his expression darkening. She forced herself beyond her limits. Yeah, I said, tightening my grip on her unconscious form. And now she is paying for it. The realization made me sick. She had pulled off an impossible escape, defying All for One and his suppression devices, but it had come at a massive personal cost. This was not just exhaustion, it was the backlash of a quirk designed to extract every ounce of energy she had. You did not have to go this far, I muttered, my voice barely audible. You are not alone, Rimuru. You do not have to carry this weight by yourself. As we reached the safe house, I laid her down carefully, her breathing still shallow but steady. All Might watched silently, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. She is strong, he said quietly. Stronger than most. But even the strongest can fall if they push themselves too hard. I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Yeah. She is strong. But she is also reckless when it comes to protecting the people she cares about. The note weighed heavy on my mind. She had known the risks, and she had taken them anyway. Not because she wanted to, but because she thought she had no choice. Well, guess what, Rimuru? I said softly, my voice steady with determination. You are not doing this alone anymore. We are in this together, whether you like it or not. I folded the note and tucked it into her pocket again, a silent promise to myself that I would not let her take risks like this without backup. She was not just fighting for herself, she was fighting for all of us. And I was not about to let her fight alone. Chapter 25. All for One POV. The last functioning monitor in my chamber displayed a grainy feed of Rimuru, Hawks, and All Might retreating from the facility. My frustration simmered as I watched her limp frame carried in Hawk's arms. Then, she collapsed. Her body went slack, her head lolling to the side as Hawks knelt to catch her. All Might turned, his expression shifting to concern, and they quickly moved to help her. But it was not her collapse that caught my attention, it was the small piece of paper sticking out of her pocket. I leaned closer, my eyes narrowing as I analyzed every detail. Hawks had noticed it, pulling it from her jacket, but the camera angle did not allow me to see what was written. Still, it did not matter. The paper was a message, that much was clear. And the timing of her collapse was too convenient. My mind raced, piecing together the possibilities. Her display of defiance, the incredible use of multiple quirks under suppression, and now this, a dramatic collapse in front of her allies, perfectly framing her as a hero who had pushed herself beyond her limits. Clever, I murmured, a slow smile curling across my lips. Very clever. The note was no doubt an explanation, a crafted excuse for her sudden collapse. It would draw attention away from the truth of her abilities, reinforcing the idea that she had overexerted herself due to a loophole in the suppression devices. But I saw through it. This was not exhaustion, I said softly, my voice filled with cold certainty. This was theater. A calculated move to mask the true extent of her power. Her collapse served a dual purpose. It not only solidified her image as a hero willing to sacrifice everything, but it also eliminated any lingering suspicion her allies might have had about the nature of her quirk. Rimuru, I murmured, my tone equal parts admiration and irritation. You have orchestrated this perfectly. But you cannot fool me. Her abilities were evolving, her mastery growing beyond even my expectations. But her willingness to hide her full strength, to play the long game, proved that she still feared exposure. Your power mirrors mine, I continued, my smile widening. But where I dominate, you deceive. And that deception will be your undoing. I turned away from the monitor as the feed went dark, her image burned into my mind. Enjoy your role as the noble hero, Rimuru, I said, my voice low and deliberate. Because when I expose the truth, even your allies will turn against you. Her carefully crafted facade would not hold forever. And when it cracked, I would be there to ensure her fall was as spectacular as her rise. I watched the news feeds with a calculated calm, taking in the headlines and carefully crafted stories as they flooded the airwaves. Hawks and All Might rescue hero copycat from All for One stronghold. The images that accompanied the story were dramatic, as expected, Hawks carrying Rimuru, unconscious but seemingly victorious, with All Might walking alongside him, a figure of unwavering strength. The narrative painted her as a selfless hero who had pushed herself beyond her limits to defy me. And no one questioned it. The public adored her. The so-called hero copycat was a symbol of resilience, someone who could stand against overwhelming odds and prevail. Her collapse was framed as a testament to her dedication, her willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew she was my daughter. I leaned back in my chair, steepling my fingers as the broadcast continued. Her deception was flawless. She had carefully constructed her image, revealing only what she wanted them to see. To them, she was simply a hero, nothing more, nothing less. And so it would seem, I murmured, my voice low and cold. The hero copycat. A savior in the eyes of the public, a beacon of hope. The irony was not lost on me. She was playing the part perfectly, using the narrative to shield herself from scrutiny. Her name was on every tongue, her image plastered across every screen, yet no one truly knew her. Not her allies. Not the public. Not even her closest companions. They only know what you allow them to know, I said softly, my gaze fixed on the screen. But I know the truth, Rimuru. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. You are not their hero. You are created under my guidance. My daughter. The thought stirred equal parts pride and irritation. She had come so far, defied so much, yet she could not escape what she truly was. For now, the world celebrated her victory, unaware of the threads of manipulation woven into the narrative. Enjoy your moment, Rimuru, I murmured, my voice laced with quiet menace. But remember this, the truth always has a way of surfacing. And when it does, even the hero copycat will not escape my reach. The game continued, and the pieces were in motion. She could hide behind her mask for now. But masks always cracked. And when hers did, I would be waiting. The news feeds continued their adoration, their carefully edited footage looping again and again. Rimuru, unconscious but victorious, was hailed as a hero who had faced overwhelming odds and survived. The public reveled in the narrative, none of them questioning the deeper truth. I leaned back in my chair, the faint hum of the monitors around me a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. The story was perfect, of course. Too perfect. Whatever would you do when the truth comes to light, my dear? I murmured, my voice soft, almost affectionate. The question hung in the air, unanswered but brimming with possibilities. When the truth inevitably surfaced, when the world discovered that the beloved hero copycat was not just my creation, but my daughter, how would she respond? Would she deny it? Would she embrace it, twisting the narrative to fit her own needs? Or would she fall under the weight of the revelation, her carefully constructed facade shattering in front of the very people she sought to protect? I allowed myself a small smile, a mix of pride and irritation simmering within me. "You have done well to keep your secrets," I said quietly, my gaze fixed on the flickering screens. "But secrets have a way of unraveling. And when they do, the world you have built will crumble." The thought of her defiance, her brilliance, and her relentless drive brought a rare sense of admiration to my chest. She was a masterpiece, my masterpiece. And yet, she had chosen to use that brilliance against me, turning the tools I had given her into weapons of rebellion. "What will you say, Rimuru?" I continued, my voice low, "when they ask you why you never told them? When they see you not as their hero, but as my daughter?" The smile widened, cold and deliberate. "Will you try to explain? Will you fight to keep their trust? Or will you finally accept what you are, what you have always been?" The truth would come to light. It always did. And when that moment came, when the world turned its eyes on her, the question would no longer be whether she could stand against me. It would be whether she could stand at all. "Whatever you choose, my dear," I murmured, my tone tinged with menace, "know this, I will be watching. Always." The game continued, but the endgame was drawing nearer. And when the truth emerged, it would not just be a revelation. It would be her reckoning. Chapter 26. All for one POV. I rose from my chair, my mind churning with thoughts of Rimuru's next move. But as I walked toward the door of my chamber, intending to step out and address my operatives, something unexpected happened. The door did not budge. I frowned, pressing the override panel beside it. Nothing. Not a single response. The faint hum of the quirk suppression devices around me, normally a constant reminder of control, seemed louder now in the sudden stillness. "Interesting," I murmured, my tone calm but edged with irritation. "What game are you playing now, Rimuru?" And then, her voice slipped into my mind, soft, teasing, and infuriatingly smug. "Father," she said, her tone dripping with mockery. "Your face is priceless. Good luck going forward." I froze, my hands tightening into fists as her words echoed in my head. So, this was her doing. The realization simmered in my chest, equal parts anger and admiration. She had somehow manipulated my own systems again, trapping me in my own sanctuary. "Rimuru," I said softly, my voice low and cold. "You have become quite bold." Her laughter, faint but unmistakable, echoed in my mind like a taunt. "Bold? Oh, father, I am just getting started." I moved to the console on the wall, my fingers flying over the keys to access the backup systems. But each attempt was met with failure, her interference leaving my normally impenetrable systems useless. She had planned this. Every step, every move, was calculated to leave me isolated and powerless, if only temporarily. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to remain calm. "You may have won this round, Rimuru," I murmured, my voice steady despite the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "But games like these only serve to delay the inevitable." Her voice returned, softer this time, almost gentle. "Delay, distract, defy. Call it what you like, father. Just know that I will always be one step ahead." The connection faded, leaving me alone in the silence of my chamber. I allowed myself a small, cold smile, despite the irritation simmering in my chest. "Enjoy your moment, my dear," I said softly, my gaze fixed on the immovable door. "But remember, every step ahead of me only brings you closer to my grasp." She was clever, yes. But cleverness had its limits. And I would ensure she reached hers. As I sat in the stillness of my chamber, her taunting voice fading from my mind, a chilling realization struck me. Rimuru was not just hiding in plain sight, she was thriving there. Her carefully crafted role as the hero copycat had granted her access to places I could only infiltrate through subterfuge and manipulation. She walked freely in the halls of hero buildings, UA high school, public areas, and even the Hero Public Safety Commission headquarters. And she was not just present. She was holding meetings with top heroes. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the thought settling over me. If even a fraction of her supposed limitations were false, as I now suspected, then the implications were staggering. She has access to them all, I murmured, my voice low and sharp. Not all at once, perhaps, but still. The idea that she could subtly analyze and potentially copy the quirks of heroes and officials in those spaces was both infuriating and impressive. Rimuru's quirk did not just mimic, it dissected, understood, and adapted. And now, she was perfectly positioned to gather an arsenal of knowledge and power from the very infrastructure meant to oppose me. "How long have you been planning this, my dear?" I murmured, my fingers steepling as I considered the scope of her actions. Her moves were deliberate, her presence a quiet challenge to everything I had built. She was no longer the child I had shaped, but a force operating on a level few could comprehend. "Your cleverness knows no bounds," I said softly, a faint smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "But even you must know the dangers of playing this game." Her access, her influence, her ability to hide her true nature, all of it painted a picture of someone who had mastered the art of deception. But deception had its limits. And when those limits were reached, the fall would be catastrophic. "You have positioned yourself well, Rimuru," I said, my voice steady but laced with menace. "But the higher you climb, the harder you will fall." Her proximity to power, her interactions with heroes, and her growing reputation would make her difficult to confront directly. But I did not need direct confrontation. All I needed was time. "Enjoy your access," I murmured, my smile widening. "Because when the truth comes to light, you will find that your position is far more precarious than you realize." As I contemplated Rimuru's growing influence and the carefully woven facade of her hero persona, one question lingered in my mind, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. What were her limits? She had already shattered many of the constraints I once believed she had. The supposed 5-second interval between switching quirks, her inability to use more than one quirk at a time, lies, carefully constructed to hide the scope of her true capabilities. But even Rimuru had to have limits. No quirk, no person, was without weakness. I leaned forward, steepling my fingers as I replayed everything I knew about her. Analytical copycat was powerful, potentially the only quirk that could rival my own. Its strength lay not just in replication but in understanding, adaptation, and mastery. Yet power of that magnitude came at a cost. "Stamina," I murmured, my voice soft but edged with certainty. Even her endurance cannot be infinite. Every quirk she used, every ability she activated, would draw on her physical and mental reserves. The more she used, the greater the toll. Her collapse during her escape was proof of that, a sign that even her remarkable abilities were not without consequence. "Focus," I continued, my tone measured. "Precision requires clarity. Overwhelm her, disrupt her control, and she falters." Rimuru's greatest strength was her ability to analyze and act with precision. But no one, not even her, could maintain perfect focus indefinitely. If I could force her into a situation where she had to act impulsively, she would make mistakes. And then there was the quirk itself. "Knowledge without application is useless," I mused, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "She may analyze quirks, but she cannot master them all simultaneously." Her quirk relied on her ability to switch between abilities, to apply them as needed. But she could only act on what she understood, and understanding took time. "Limits," I said softly, the word tasting bitter yet satisfying. "You have them, Rimuru. You have simply hidden them well." My mind raced with possibilities, strategies to exploit the weaknesses she fought so hard to conceal. She had come far, but even she could not escape the fundamental truth of all power. Every strength has a breaking point. And I would find hers. "You are remarkable, my dear," I murmured, leaning back in my chair. "But even you cannot defy your own nature forever." The question of her limits no longer haunted me. It inspired me. Because once I uncovered them, she would no longer be a threat. She would be mine. Chapter 27. All for one POV. As I sat in the quiet of my chamber, my thoughts weaving strategies to uncover Rimuru's elusive limits, her voice cut through my mind like a blade. Good try, father, but I have already accounted for that. I stiffened, my hands clenching as her voice echoed in my head. I have got a quirk to negate the mastery strain I should not have originally. No mental fatigue, thanks to my assistant great sage. As for the physical and energy side, that is covered too. I just did not use that particular quirk for reasons. Her tone was casual, almost smug, as though she were correcting an eager student. I leaned forward, my irritation bubbling beneath the surface. Your assistant? I murmured, my voice low and sharp. What game are you playing now, Rimuru? The idea that she had an ally, or worse, another quirk, helping her manage the strain of her abilities only deepened the complexity of her power. She was not just overcoming her limits, she was erasing them. You have become quite resourceful, I thought back, knowing full well she could not hear me. But resourcefulness is not invincibility. Her claim about physical and energy strain intrigued me further. If she truly possessed a quirk capable of mitigating the physical toll of her actions, she was effectively removing the most significant drawbacks of her abilities. But why had she not used it before? Reasons, I muttered, echoing her own words with a cold smile. There is always a reason, Rimuru. And reasons can be exploited. Her voice faded, leaving behind a silence that was far more oppressive than the taunts themselves. She was still hiding something. Something critical. Even the most intricate plans have flaws, I murmured, my resolve hardening. And even you, Rimuru, cannot prepare for everything. Her defiance, her careful calculations, and her growing arsenal of quirks were impressive. But they also revealed something else, her fear. She feared being caught, being outmaneuvered, being exposed. And that fear would be her undoing. Keep talking, Rimuru, I said softly, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across my face. Every word you speak brings me closer to finding your truth. She was clever, yes. But even the cleverest games had an end. Her voice returned, light and teasing, as if she were savoring her victory. I love talking with you, father, she said, the mockery in her tone unmistakable. What do you want to talk about? I am all ears. I gritted my teeth, my irritation simmering just beneath the surface. Oh, and by the way, she continued, her voice dripping with amusement, as long as we are having this lovely chat, you are still stuck in that quirk-suppressing area I made. So go ahead, talk all you want. I clenched my fists, the weight of her words settling over me. She had designed this trap perfectly, an area that not only suppressed my abilities but left me isolated, unable to enact my plans. And she was enjoying every second of it. You have become quite the conversationalist, I said aloud, my tone measured despite the frustration gnawing at me. But you should know that no trap is perfect, Rimuru. Even yours. Her laughter echoed in my mind, soft and infuriating. You keep telling yourself that, father. But for now, I think I will enjoy watching you squirm. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to remain calm. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this, my dear? A victory lap? Or are you simply trying to buy yourself time? Maybe both, she replied, her voice carrying an air of mock innocence. Or maybe I just like the idea of you sitting there, stuck, while I remind you that you are not as in control as you think. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. Control is a delicate thing, Rimuru. And the more you revel in yours, the more precarious it becomes. TSK, father, she chided. Always so ominous. But do not worry, I will let you out eventually. Maybe. Her words hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in playful defiance. You have come far, I admitted, my voice low and deliberate. Farther than I ever anticipated. But you should know this, Rimuru, even the cleverest traps cannot hold forever. And when I am free, She interrupted me, her tone still light but carrying an edge of finality. When you are free, father, we will play again. But for now, enjoy the break. You have earned it. Her presence faded, leaving me alone in the silence of the suppression chamber. I sat back, steepling my fingers as I processed her words. Enjoy this moment, Rimuru, I murmured, my voice low and sharp. Because every second you keep me here is a second closer to your reckoning. The game continued, and while she had the upper hand now, I would ensure that when the tide turned, it would be unstoppable. Her voice returned, faintly amused and brimming with satisfaction. While we have this little conversation, father, let me tell you a secret, she said, her tone light and teasing. I am still playing the unconscious damsel who overused her abilities. Convincing, right? Even I have to admit, my act is flawless. Not really unconscious, of course, she continued, her amusement evident. But they all think so, Hawks, All Might, everyone watching the news. And while they are fussing over me, I am using all kinds of abilities in the meantime. Multitasking, you could say. I clenched my fists, her defiance infuriating and yet oddly impressive. She had crafted the perfect facade, one that not only shielded her from suspicion but also allowed her to operate freely beneath their noses. You are more cunning than I gave you credit for, I admitted aloud, my voice low but laced with irritation. But even the cleverest actors can slip. Her laughter echoed in my mind, soft and mocking. Slip? Oh, father, you wound me. I have been perfecting this act for years. Let them believe I am fragile, vulnerable, a hero who pushed herself too hard. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing to counter her moves. You are building a house of cards, Rimuru. And when it collapses, it will be catastrophic. Maybe, she replied, her tone casual. But for now, it is working beautifully. You should see the looks on their faces, father, so worried, so concerned. They are eating it up. Her audacity was infuriating, but it was also a testament to how far she had come. She was not just defying me, she was turning her deception into an art form. And what do you hope to gain from this? I asked, my voice cold. Another fleeting victory? Another delay? More than that, she said, her voice softening, though the confidence remained. I am not just delaying you, father. I am learning, adapting, evolving. Every move you make, every trap you set, it all helps me get stronger. Her words stung, not because of their defiance, but because they held a kernel of truth. She was using this game against me, turning every setback into an opportunity. So, enjoy this little chat, she added, her tone playful again. Because while you are stuck here, I am out there, rewriting the rules. Her presence faded, leaving me alone with the weight of her words. I leaned back in my chair, my frustration simmering beneath a calm exterior. You have grown bold, my dear, I murmured, my voice a quiet promise. But boldness is not invincibility. And even the best actors eventually face the curtain call. Her voice returned, piercing the silence of the suppression chamber with a calm confidence that sent a chill down my spine. And now, she began, her tone almost casual, I have all your quirks as well. I froze, the weight of her words sinking in. Thanks to my assistant's quirk, she continued, her voice laced with satisfaction, I can master any quirk I acquire in seconds. Funny, is it not? The one quirk you probably do not even think of as impressive has become my ultimate quirk. My fists clenched as her words echoed in my mind. She had taken my abilities, my legacy, and turned them into tools of her own rebellion. You are lying, I said softly, though even as the words left my lips, I knew they were not true. Her laughter rang out, light and mocking. Oh, father, when have I ever lied to you? Misdirection, maybe. But this? This is the truth. Your quirks, your power, it is all mine now. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. Her assistant's quirk, the one she so casually referenced, was far more dangerous than I had anticipated. to master quirks in mere seconds, to bypass the years of training and experience required to wield them effectively. That was a level of efficiency even I had not achieved. Impressive, I admitted, my voice steady despite the irritation simmering beneath the surface. But even you must realize the burden that comes with power. Burden, she repeated, amusement coloring her tone. You still do not understand, do you? Power is not a burden for me. It is a tool. And now I have the ultimate toolkit, thanks to you. Her confidence was infuriating, but I could not deny the truth of her words. She had turned my greatest asset, my collection of quirks, into a weapon against me. And what do you plan to do with all this power, Rimuru? I asked, my voice cold. Topple me? Become what you claim to despise. Her voice softened, though the defiance remained. I do not need to become you, Father. I just need to make sure you can never hurt anyone again. And now, I finally have the power to do it. Her presence faded, leaving me alone in the chamber, her words reverberating in my mind. I exhaled slowly, my frustration giving way to a cold determination. You have come far, my dear, I murmured, my voice low. But power alone will not save you. And when the time comes, you will realize that even the ultimate quirk has its limits. She had played her hand, and it was an impressive one. But the game was far from over. Chapter 28. All for one POV. Her voice returned, as smug and insufferably confident as ever. So, Father, how are you planning to escape? She teased, her tone dripping with amusement. Oh, and do not bother with your lackeys outside the door. They are out of your quirk range. Nice touch, right? I clenched my fists, her words cutting through the silence of the chamber. She had thought of everything, had she not? Every precaution, every countermeasure. She was playing this game on a level that even I had to respect. You have become quite thorough, I said aloud, my voice calm despite the storm brewing within. But even the most carefully constructed plans have flaws. Her laughter echoed in my mind, light and mocking. Oh, I am sure you will find one eventually, Father. But by the time you do, I will be 10 steps ahead. I leaned back in my chair, my thoughts racing as I considered my options. The suppression field rendered my quirks useless, and with my operatives deliberately out of range, I could not summon them to assist me. But no trap was perfect. There is always a way, I murmured, more to myself than to her. Is there? She asked, her voice almost playful. Because right now, it looks like you are stuck. And while you are stuck, I have got all the time in the world to dismantle everything you have built. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to remain calm. You have underestimated me before, Rimuru. I suggest you do not make that mistake again. Her voice softened, though the confidence never wavered. Maybe. Or maybe this time, I have finally outplayed you. Either way, good luck, Father. You are going to need it. Her presence faded, leaving me alone with the silence of the suppression chamber. I closed my eyes, my mind working through the possibilities. Rimuru had thought of nearly everything, but nearly was the key. No trap was infallible. And I would find its weakness. You have come far, Rimuru, I murmured, my voice low and cold. But you are not the only one who can adapt. The game continued, and while she held the upper hand for now, I was far from defeated. I would escape. And when I did, her carefully crafted plans would crumble. The quiet of the chamber was oppressive, the hum of the suppression field a constant reminder of my current predicament. Rimuru's mocking voice still echoed faintly in my mind, her confidence infuriatingly unshaken. I stood and approached the door, placing a hand on its cold, unyielding surface. Beyond it, my operatives waited, deliberately positioned outside the range of my influence. She had orchestrated this perfectly, ensuring that even those loyal to me were useless in my current state. You have thought of nearly everything, I murmured, the corners of my mouth curling into a faint smile. But nearly is not enough to hold me. I turned back toward the room, scanning its sparse interior. The suppression devices hummed steadily, embedded in the walls and ceiling, creating an inescapable field that neutralized my quirks. But suppression was not nullification. The devices did not erase power, they only dampened its effects. That was their design, their flaw. I extended my hand, focusing on the faintest flicker of energy within me. It was barely perceptible, a shadow of my usual strength, but it was there. Adaptation, I murmured, the word tasting bitter but necessary. Rimuru had forced my hand, driving me to the limits of my ingenuity. If I could not rely on raw power, I would use finesse. The suppression field was a masterpiece of control, but like all systems, it relied on consistency. A single disruption, a power surge, an external force, could destabilize its balance. I walked to the control panel embedded in the wall. Rimuru had locked me out of my systems, but physical mechanisms could not be entirely overwritten. Every design, no matter how advanced, had a manual override. I pressed my palm against the panel, exerting the faintest pulse of energy. The field flickered, barely noticeable, but enough to confirm my theory. A crack, I murmured, my voice soft but edged with determination. That is all I need. Her trap was clever, but she had underestimated my ability to find and exploit weaknesses. I leaned against the wall, my mind working through the next steps. Disrupting the suppression field would take time, and I would have to act carefully to avoid triggering her failsafes. But time was something I had in abundance. You have forced me to adapt, Rimuru, I said softly, a slow smile spreading across my face. And when I escape, I will repay the favor. Her cleverness, her defiance, her careful planning, it was all admirable, even enviable. But it was also flawed. No one could account for everything. Not even her. I closed my eyes, focusing on the faint flicker of energy within me, and began to work. As I worked, channeling what little power the suppression field allowed me, her voice returned, sharp and mocking, cutting through my concentration. Not happening that easily, Father, she said, her tone dripping with amusement. Before I could respond, the room erupted in chaos. A surge of black lightning burst from the walls, crackling with raw energy. The air itself seemed to hum with power as the bolt struck me with an intensity one had not anticipated. I was thrown back, slamming into the far wall, the impact sending a dull ache radiating through my body. The suppression chamber trembled with the force of the blast, the glow of the lightning casting erratic shadows across the room. I gritted my teeth, pushing myself up slowly as the last tendrils of lightning dissipated. You have prepared well, I muttered, my voice strained but steady. Perhaps too well. Her laughter echoed in my mind, soft and infuriating. Oh, Father, did you think I would not notice? The suppression field may dampen your quirks, but you are still dangerous. So, I added a little insurance. I wiped a hand across my face, brushing away a trickle of blood. Black lightning, I said, my tone cold. An impressive touch. But it will not stop me. No, she admitted, her voice tinged with satisfaction. It will not. But it will slow you down. And that is enough for now. The hum of the suppression devices grew louder, almost as if they were responding to the lightning. The energy in the room felt heavier, pressing down on me with renewed force. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stand tall despite the weight. You have become quite the tactician, Rimuru, I said, my voice calm but edged with irritation. But every move you make only delays the inevitable. Her voice softened, though the confidence remained. Maybe. Or maybe I am just enjoying watching you struggle for once. You have always been so composed, so untouchable. It is nice to see you on the other side of the game. The connection faded again, leaving me alone with the faint scent of ozone and the oppressive hum of the chamber. I leaned against the wall, my mind racing even as my body ached from the lightning's force. She had accounted for everything, or so she thought. You are clever, my dear, I murmured, a faint smile tugging at my lips. But cleverness is not invincibility. And lightning, no matter how powerful, will not keep me here forever. Her trap was formidable, but even the strongest traps had weaknesses. And I would find hers. Because no matter how much she mocked or delayed me, the game was far from over. Hawk's POV. The safe house was quiet, the dim light of the room casting a warm glow over the sparse furnishings. Rimuru lay on the bed, her silver hair spread across the pillow, her face pale but peaceful. All Might sat in a chair by her bedside, his broad shoulders hunched slightly as he watched her with a mix of concern and admiration. I leaned against the wall, my arms crossed, keeping my usual relaxed posture even as the tension in the room weighed heavy. She had been out for hours, and despite knowing her strength, there was a part of me that could not shake the worry gnawing at the back of my mind. Then, a faint sound broke the silence. "Sorry for the trouble I caused." Her voice was barely a whisper, weak and fragile, but it was enough to draw both of our attention. I pushed off the wall and moved closer, standing at the foot of the bed. All Might leaned forward, his expression softening as she opened her golden eyes slowly, blinking as if adjusting to the light. "Rimuru," All Might said gently, his voice filled with relief. "You are awake." She gave a faint nod, her movement sluggish. "Barely," she mumbled, her voice hoarse. "But I am here." I let out a small sigh, shaking my head. "You scared the hell out of us, you know that? You do not just collapse like that and expect us not to worry." A weak smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "Sorry," she said again, her voice soft but sincere. "I did not mean to cause so much trouble." All Might placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression firm but kind. "You do not need to apologize, Rimuru. You pushed yourself to the limit for the sake of others. That is nothing to be sorry for." She closed her eyes briefly, as if absorbing his words. "Still," she murmured, "I do not want to be a burden." I crouched beside the bed, resting my forearms on my knees as I looked at her. "A burden? Seriously? You just broke out of All for One's stronghold and threw his plans into chaos. If anything, you are the opposite of a burden." Her golden eyes flicked to me, a faint spark of amusement shining through her exhaustion. "Thanks, Hawks," she said quietly. "But you are just saying that to make me feel better." I smirked, shaking my head. "Nah, I mean it. You are a pain sometimes, sure, but you are one hell of a hero." She chuckled weakly, the sound barely audible but genuine. All Might smiled, his tone gentle but resolute. "Rest now, Rimuru. You have done more than enough for today. We will handle things from here." She nodded slowly, her eyelids growing heavier. "Thanks," she whispered, her voice trailing off as she drifted back into sleep. I stood, exchanging a glance with All Might. "She is tougher than anyone gives her credit for," I said quietly. All Might nodded. "Yes, but even the strongest need support. And it is up to us to make sure she gets it." As I looked back at Rimuru, her breathing steady and peaceful, I could not help but feel a renewed sense of determination. "You have got us, Rimuru," I murmured. "We are not letting you face this alone."